Understanding the technology that powers the money is essential. Knowing the business drivers that inspire how the money is made is crucial. Bridging the gap between the mind of the technologist and the mind of the business is monumental. That is what TBF is all about. Let's start this never-ending conversation. It's time.
Friday, welcome back to another episode of the Tech Behind FinTech. I'm your host, Nnamdi Osuagwu. Today, we are jumping into quantum computing basics and also talking about the impact on FinTech and cybersecurity. Will be an interesting show. Did some research on it. Very excited to talk through it when we get to that stage. As always, when we start the show off, we talk about the current news and the events, and then we jump into the main topic. We're going to keep the news brief today only because quantum is such a massive topic, and I want to go through it and hopefully do it justice. So let's go over some housekeeping stuff first. We have we're streaming live from Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, and we also have a feed going on from Instagram. And shout out to my guys watching me on IG. Man, Harry, see CB over there. That's good stuff. All right. Listen to the people on IG. If you want to be part of your comments or questions, you can go to the Tech Behind FinTech, and there will be a YouTube link where you can watch it live there as well. Everyone else, feel free to drop a comment on the platform you're using, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitch will then post it on the show, so be part of the show. Once again, questions, comments, if you have insight, if you are a quantum expert, because I'm not, add in, it should be a great conversation. But without further ado, let's jump into some news articles. So we're going to cover today. We're going to go over big tech layoffs, a couple of companies doing that. Capital One also laid off 1,100 tech staff. Then we're going to jump into the topic of the day. First and foremost, SAP laid off 3,000 of its workers. That's 3% of its workforce. That happened yesterday. Confluent, 8% of its staff, 221. IBM, 3,900 employees. That's 2%. Let's go down. Luno, which is a crypto platform, 35% of their staff, 330. Real estate, Clear Capital, 250. Their staff is 25% of their workforce. Going to shoot down. Bolt, finance shop, 10% of their workforce, 50 people. And Harvest Insurance, 14% of their staff. All right, gonna move on to the next one. So Capital One, 1,100 tech staff layoffs. We've been covering the layoffs because it's what's going on right now in the technology industry. So just staying abreast of it, what's happening. So U.S. financial services giant Capital One has cut 1,100 technology jobs. The firm is getting rid of its agile job family. So Reuters reports that the companies plan to integrate the now Axe department's responsibilities into existing engineering and product manager roles, with impacted employees invited to apply for other positions at the firm. In a statement, Capital One spokesperson says the agile role in our tech organization was critical to our earlier transformation phases, but as our organization matured, the natural next step is to integrate agile. So this follows. We reported previously other Wall Street firms, Goldman Sachs and BlackRock, embarked on layoffs previously as well. Sure as Crypto.com, Stripe, and so forth. Okay, so now that we are done with that, let's get into our main topic. What is quantum computing? So, honestly, this is something that I've been hearing about for the last few years. Never really dived in. I was focused on other things, but I want to do a show on it. So it also gave me the opportunity to research it so that I can talk about it today. Hopefully, um, I can see a future episode where we go deeper, get an actual quantum expert as a guest, and really dive in. So let's go into it. So what is quantum computing? Basically, it has the capability to sift through huge numbers of possibilities and extract potential solutions to complex problems and challenges. So, and in the industry and the research, they like the computers we're using today, they call that classical computing. And in classical computing, we have something called bits. And if you heard that term bits, you ever heard of the term binary? It's either zero and one. But in the quantum aspect, they have qubits, and the qubits can engage zero and one in a multi-dimensional way. They call that the quantum state. So, you know, let's get into how this stuff looks. So, if you're on the other platforms, if you go to the Tech Behind FinTech, you'll be able to see. On the podcast, we're just going to describe what I'm looking at. So what we're seeing right now is an actual quantum computer, right? So it's a couple of characteristics of it that's very interesting. Number one, it has to be kept in a deep freeze state, so it has to be kept cold. Let's go over some. Let me just pull over some notes real quick. Very interesting. We're looking at Google's um, quantum computer right now in their lab. So what we're looking at first, the outer layer. I mean, they have it contained in some sort of refrigerated unit, and it's the coldest theoretical temperature. They call it supercharged refrigerator that uses a liquefied helium mix to cool the computer's quantum chip down to near absolute zero. Um, it looks like I could describe it for people that are going to be viewing this on the podcast. If you take a light bulb and turn the light bulb upside down, you'll see a filament, right? Picture that filament has about, I don't know, 10,000 little Ys. That's how it looks. And then remove the glass. And after removing the glass, you're going to, on each, every about, I would say, every 5 inches down, there's a golden plate that separates the structure into different sections. And the outer vessel is what they call a chandelier. It actually, you know what? It actually looks like a chandelier. That's how it looks. So it does not look like a traditional computer that you've seen before. Totally different. You can actually just Google quantum computer and then look at the images. But that's the way it's stored, right? So it's a couple of characteristics. One has to be super cold. In this quantum computer, Google's computer is called Sycamore. Um, let's look at some other characteristics. We also have the actual chip. So it uses a series of circuits called gates. Wait, no, that's not that. User. So yeah, I mean that's a general rule, right? It's kept cold. It's kind of kept in also a vacuum state and so forth. So just wanted to kind of paint that picture literally on how the actual quantum computer looks. So if we think about it, it's a good example that I found that I like. It kind of brought some a little bit of clarity. So if you thought about a maze, right? You thought about how a mouse going through a maze to get to the opposite end of the cheese. Let's say that we had to craft a program to do that, right? On a traditional programs, a classical, right? The program will basically go through all the different alternatives without trial and error very fast, right? Fast for like, just in general, right? And then they'll eventually find a way out of the maze. Where a quantum computer will basically look at all pathways simultaneously, right? And then it uses this thing called superposition, the superposition will basically contain all possible runouts, and then they will collapse the superposition to show the likeliest path. So if you think about that one example, like with a maze, how on the traditional classical sense, we're doing a trial and error, where on the quantum side, it sees everything simultaneously, collapses it, and then it shows you the possible the likeliest outcome. So super fast compared to traditional computers and how they solve for problems. It works really well when you're dealing with a huge, enormous amount of variables and we're going to get into that for cybersecurity purposes, where they'll take a regular computer, if you look at certain encryption models, usually they'll take hundreds or thousands of years to crack, where a quantum computer can do it in a few seconds, right? And that's really the goal, right? That it's able to do that. We'll talk about where the industry is at in the technology, but from a theoretical side, that's what it can accomplish. Yeah, so if you are you on IG, you go to the techbehindfintech.com, you can see the picture that we're looking at. If you're really interested, if you're listening to this on podcast, I just described it, right? What you basically see is a huge refrigerated unit, and then inside of that you have the like picture, like I said, an upside down light bulb with massive amounts of wire, and then every 5 or so inches a gold plate to separate it down into sections. That whole thing is literally like a chandelier that you would be looking at in your kitchen or something. All right, let's move on to some features. So as we talked about in terms of the maze example, something else interesting to so it's a couple of terms that they have called superposition, right? And then instead of bits, they're called qubits. So in the quantum world, it's a qubit, and a qubit places quantum information that it contains into a state of superposition. This refers to a combination of all possible configurations of the qubit. Groups of qubit in the superposition can create complex, multidimensional computational spaces. Complex problems can be represented in new ways in these spaces. And there was this equation that they had, right? So if you look at, so let's go on for a second. So there's another term they call entanglement, where pairs of qubits can be made to become entangled. This means that two qubits then exist in a single state. In such a state, changing one qubit directly affects the other in a manner that's predictable. All right, let's break that down, because those are the definitions that they have. But if we put it down, so if you have like 2 qubits can store 4 values, but if you have 20 qubits and that are entangled in the same state, it can store up to 1 million values. So you go from 2 to 20, and that's a huge difference. So imagine as you keep upping the number of size of your qubits. So it's important to understand that. So that's what they're saying. So through entanglement, scientists can push multiple qubits into the same state, even if they are not in contact with each other. While individual qubits exist in the superposition of 2 states, this increases exponentially as you entangle more qubits with each other. So let's break that down even further, right? In the superposition, you have 2 states. As you go and entangle them, time you think of entanglement, you start thinking about last year, but that's neither here nor there. But when you entangle these qubits and they're in the same state, they're able to hold multiple values and do even greater computations. Once again, like the goal, really, we're going to get more into the industry side, but I think we have to just cover some basics before we do that. So it sounds great, but like all these great technologies, there's in the current state, we have a couple of limitations, right? That's why we're not currently using it to break into encryption models and so forth yet. So it's a couple of limitations. The first one is called decoherence. So that's when the qubits start to decay, right? The quantum state can be distributed instantly by state can be disturbed instantly by vibrations or temperature changes. So remember before when we looked at the picture for the quantum computing, it has to be extremely cold. If that temperature is disturbed, it's going to cause decoherence. And then a full out of superposition and cause errors in the computing. Next issue is error correction or limitation, right? So during the computing stage, hasn't been perfected. That makes computations potentially unreliable. Since qubits are digital bits of data, they can't benefit from conventional error correction solutions used by classical computers. Next limitation, security and quantum cryptography is not fully developed, and lack of qubits is another one. So remember we talked about entanglement, how we go from 4 to 20 and the number of values it can hold dramatically increases, right? So that would mean, right, if you go from 20 to 100, 100 to 1,000, you could only imagine the potential of it. But currently a lack of qubits prevents quantum computers from living up to their potential. So researchers have yet to produce more than 128 qubits in one quantum computer. So that's also a limitation. All right. So let's look at the market right now, right? Overall, so if you have any questions on that, I'll try my best to answer. But just wanted to give you the basics before we now start diving into the market. So it looks so. I have a picture right here of quantum computer organizations when they were founded. So in 2002, we saw an uptick in 18 and 19, then it dropped back down in 2022. So we saw, IBM was in it because they had an experiment going. We're going to talk about that later on when we get into cybersecurity insurance algorithm. But overall, we're watching just how the market is. That's one thing. When something becomes hype, like in 2019, Google performed something, an experiment. A lot of startups that then those numbers started to drop in 2021 and 2022 so far, but probably going to increase as we move forward. All right, so let's now look at some of the major players in the industry. So we have a picture here. We're going to go through some. So these are some quantum computing industry leaders. IBM, right? Number one. They have the IBM Quantum Composer and the IBM Quantum Lab. They form an online platform allowing public and premium access to cloud-based quantum computer services provided by IBM Quantum. We have Google Quantum AI. So, and we just earlier on, we displayed the quantum computer picture that we showed was from the Google's Sycamore quantum computing chip. So they have quantum computing AI. They're a leading player in the full stack capabilities in quantum computing. Google Quantum Computing AI is advancing the state of the art of quantum computing by developing tools for researchers to operate beyond classical capabilities. Microsoft, they play in the game. They're a provider of the first full stack open cloud quantum computing ecosystem featuring solutions, software, and hardware delivered through Azure. AWS, so Amazon, they have a service called Bracket. It's a fully managed quantum computing service designed to help speed up scientific research, software development for quantum computing. On the other side of the world, in China, Alibaba Group, partnering with the Chinese Academy of Science, Alibaba Group's cloud computing subsidiary has established the Alibaba Quantum Computing Laboratory in Shanghai, China. They're a member of the international quantum computing community, so forth. They embrace the idea of open source projects in this space. Another company, Atos Quantum, they're a French multinational company that specializes in quantum technology. Atos Quantum has released a product called the Atos quantum learning machine, a classical computer that can simulate a quantum system using anywhere between 30 and 40 qubits, depending upon the specific configuration. Last is the last two, Baidu. It comes from China. It's a quantum computing they have a quantum computing program that includes a launch of an institute for quantum computing dedicated to the application of quantum computing software information technology called the Baidu Quantum Computing Institute. Last but not least, Intel. So they are, so Intel Labs, the R&D arm of the company, is leveraging its expertise in high-volume transistor manufacturing to develop hot silicon spin qubits, much smaller computing devices that can operate at higher temperatures. Because remember, we talked about the qubits have to be cold, so they're developing a qubit that can operate at higher temperatures. So that's what to kind of give an overview of the market and some of the players. So this thing's happening. Banks. So in the banking world, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Citibank, they all have quantum computing initiatives internally. Not as advanced as the major players, but they are doing experiments in that space. All right, so let's get into some use cases. So why is it important to the fintech community? So financial institutions may be able to use quantum computing to design more effective and efficient investment portfolios for retail and institutional clients. They can focus on creating better trading simulators and improve fraud detection. So just faster compute, right? So right now we've been talking about, and look at the industry, AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning models, extremely is being used ubiquitously, in all facets of healthcare, finance, and so forth. So the cost of classical processing power, which rises exponentially with model complexity, is a bottleneck in the business model. This can unlock by the exponential speed up delivered by qubits over classical bits. High dimensional optimization problems. Banks and asset managers optimize portfolios based on computationally intense models that process large sets of variables. Quantum computing can allow faster and more accurate decision making. Some next use cases. Equity and FX trading offers significant possibilities amid demand for even more accurate market risk and scenario calculations. Next, loan and bond portfolios can more precise estimates on credit exposures. It can lead to better optimization decisions. So that's what we have for banking. Now let's move over to cybersecurity. So interesting countdown, right? This countdown was taken this morning, so it's still 7 years, 76 days off. So this countdown is on, hold up, give me a second. This countdown is on the Cloud Security Alliance website. And it's basically the counting down what they call quantum destruction. That's when essentially the technology of quantum computing will catch up and be able to break a lot of the encryption models that we have. So let's just freestyle this one. All right, so let's think through this, right? So what are we talking about? We need to talk about encryption models. Oh wait, I went too far. Kind of jumped the slide. So what are we talking about when we talk about encryption models? So if we look at something like RSA, right? We have a public and private key encryption. All these encryption models are basically built around prime number factorization. So, if you take a prime number greater than 1, that only can be divided by itself in 1. So like 3 and 5, for instance. When you start looking at these public keys, right, where it's easy to multiply these numbers and keep going up, relatively easy. You can see the you can you'll get some answer, right? When you start multiplying these numbers up. What's hard, extremely difficult, is when you have huge primes multiplied against each other, and now just looking at that number and trying to find its factors. Going that opposite way, possible with what we have right now. Not impossible. Some will just take, hundreds of years to crack if you start trying to crack it with a regular computer. With the quantum technology where it's expected to go, it'll be relatively straightforward to crack because of what we talked about before with superposition and entanglement and being able to simultaneously look at different paths, and you'll be able to essentially crack it. So the CSA Cloud Security Alliance, they have they do a lot of research and so forth, and they have basically a countdown in 2030 when the technology for quantum computers should reach the point where these types of encryption keys can be basically cracked. So, what can be done about that? So on the other side, if you now have the technology of quantum computing where you can, compose like new keys, right? Then you're protected, but everything basically has to catch up. So that's what this countdown is referring to. Back in some history lesson right now. So a gentleman by the name of Peter Shor created an algorithm back in 1995 called Shor's algorithm. MIT grad, he was at Bell Labs. And the algorithm he created was essentially he can, find the factors of these large primes. That's the whole of any prime number. It could factor it out. The problem is back then and even now, the technology wasn't in place to actually run his algorithm to solve it. In 2001, IBM did an experiment using a quantum computer. I think they had 7 qubits at the time, but it wasn't even at the standards that it is now. I think that's like over 20 years ago. But what they were able to do back then was take 15, right? Run Shor's algorithm in their quantum computer at that time and come up with 3 and 5. We can do that in our head. That's not difficult, right? You take 15, what are the prime factors? But the fact was they proved out the model. They proved out that they took the algorithm, they ran it against this low prime number, and that was proof of it. So now when the technology catches up, it can do it with bigger numbers. How does that impact what's going on? That impacts you could start breaking encryption keys, banking records, personal files, blockchain. Blockchain is a perfect example, right? We deal with public and private keys all the time. That's why if you have some sort of crypto account, they say keep your private keys private, but your public key. You put the public key to search. That's public. That's how you can see what's going on. You take someone's public key, you can kind of see the transactions and so forth. But the private key is what's private. Those can be essentially cracked and that's what this whole quantum destruction countdown is. Look, very, very interesting stuff. This was really meant to provide a high level, basic understanding of what's going on and also the industry. But there are some cool initiatives. So, one good thing is, and I think I'm going to do this too. Check out CSA. It's if you're in the industry, you can join some kind of guy. They have various initiatives around AI. I did a couple of their initiatives around blockchain and so forth. But this countdown to quantum destruction is very interesting. It's on there. I don't have the link readily available. But if you Google CSA quantum computing, it should come up. Listen, very, very interesting stuff today. Do you have any questions? I don't see any questions or comments, so I'll leave it at that. Kind of just want to get into it. I found it curious. Different financial firms, different organizations, and global even governments are are researching it. We're not at the point now where it can be fully leveraged. Like I said, we talked about the limitations. the current limitations, but research and ongoing research is currently going on. And when it reaches to the point they say 2030, a lot of these encryption keys will have to be changed because it could be cracked. So that is today's show. Hope you appreciated it. I actually learned some things in preparing for this show, so it was an interesting learning more about quantum and getting the basics. Definitely, I see us bringing on a guest who's been in this field for a while to really drill into a topic, because a lot of different directions that we can go. So I see that happening in the future for sure. That concludes our show today. And thank you for watching. As always, catch us here next week at 12 p.m. every Friday EST for more interesting topics around the technology around FinTech. Last but not least, I think there's a promotion that we're running, minimal viable security compliance automation tool by our sponsor. Essentially, it's a way that you can check for, get your security status, especially. And so we had a show on it, and then a couple of weeks ago on the minimal viable security product, next evolution to the MVP, where you can basically scan your entire organization and come out to, okay, what's my current status? It's not as deep as a SOC 2 or NIST, but if you don't have your startup and you don't have security in place, this can be a great automated compliance tool that will essentially leverage APIs into your cloud environments and give you a status of what's currently going on. And this can help out with RFPs and due diligences and so forth. So have a 2-month free compliance automation tool around the MVP until January 31st. So take advantage. Email Lisa at Strategic Generation if it is of interest. And on that note, that concludes our show for today. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thanks for all the messages, the comments, and so forth. Always appreciate them. You guys have a great day. Catch you next week, Friday at 12 p.m. EST. Cheers.
Understanding the technology that powers the money is essential. Knowing the business drivers that inspire how the money is made is crucial. Bridging the gap between the mind of the technologist and the mind of the business is monumental. That is what TBF is all about. Let's start this never-ending conversation. It's time.